Tithing?
Yeah. I'm done. I quit.
Okay. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today on Father's Fathers. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today on Unfathered Fathers. We got a very special guest. This is a girl I picked up off the streets, and before I met her, she was in really bad shape. We're going to be talking about her struggles just to get life together until she met me.
Riley's dying laughing, and so I cannot even pretend like that's not funny.
No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about just our struggle financially. We got married within 7 months of meeting, and if I was honest, I was trying to impress her that I had it all together, that I could build a house, buy her a new car, go shopping, all those things, just to try to make her think she married into something great. But it actually got us into big trouble, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, Miss Jennifer Phillips, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So we got married. I was 21. You were 19.
Barely.
And when we got married, her dad was like, okay, here you go. Here's all her debt. And on top of mine, she had college debt, car debt. What else?
That's about it.
Okay. I had probably credit cards, maybe. Had a car, truck, had a Mustang that I never should have bought. Had a truck. But when we got married, we paid for the wedding, mostly ourselves. And then we right away, I wanted to get her a different car, bought her a new car, started building a house. I had already had my own business when we met. And for a single guy, I was making good money. And I didn't realize that when you get married and accumulate all these extra bills, that the money's not the same. So we bought the new car, went to the bank, got more money than really we can afford, built a house bigger than what we could afford. And you were pregnant.
Yes.
Before we got the house done. Actually, Weston was born before we even moved into the new house.
That's right.
And I didn't, or probably knew, just never admitted that I was trying to impress anybody, but that looking back, that's exactly what I was trying to do, trying to impress her, trying to impress my family members, the people around us, that I'm a big shop business owner and can build a new house and have her a nice car and a new truck. And we had a kid. Did we have insurance? Yeah, you were still working at the bank, right? When we had
For
Weston.
a little while, yes.
So when we had Weston, she had insurance. So that paid for when Weston was born, right?
Yes.
But she's a big talker too, by the way. You'll figure that out.
I'll get warmed up.
So we built this house. Like I said, it was more than we could afford. As a matter of fact, we actually ran out of money before we got the house done. And a friend of mine, which wasn't a friend of mine at the time, but a guy named Steve Long, he come and helped me pour my driveway, because that was the final step to get where we can get our construction loan closed and get our mortgage. And so we moved into this house. We couldn't afford the furniture to put in it.
Or the mini blinds.
Couldn't even afford mini blinds. When we moved in, we would have people looking through the window because they thought it was empty. And
we eventually hung some sheets up over the windows.
The front windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we very quickly, we built this house, and we couldn't even enjoy it because with all the debt that we had, then the payment on the new house, it became like a prison. That's when we started using the American Express, putting all our expense on that. We became professionals at using the overdraft.
Yes.
We would whenever we could use it, we'd pull out as much as possible, and
We became reliant on the credit card,
yeah, and we would.
which that particular card had to be paid off every month. So it was even a bigger burden because then we had to come up with how to pay it off each time.
Yeah. So we lived in the house just a couple months and realized we were in trouble. We listed the house, and within 10 months we got the house sold. But before,
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say during that time is when, before we ever sold the house, is when God started working on us about paying our tithes.
Yeah.
And showed us that the American Express card was, we were praying for God to help us and give us answers, but then we were relying on the card. And so I know you remember when we got rid of that, but.
So when we were in that house, God did start convicting us about tithes. And when we started paying tithes, it was literally, if we paid our tithes, we were not going to have enough money even for groceries, let alone the bills. And that was our first step, was to start paying tithes when we were in the house, and we realized we couldn't afford everything we had, but we started honoring God with our tithes. But we would use that American Express and our credit cards. When the money ran out, we would just put it on a card. Yeah. And we were driving, I think, to get groceries.
I don't remember, but
we were going somewhere
driving.
That we were gonna use American Express, and we were in her car, and we were driving, and God just convicted me about it, and it was like, you pray, and you're asking me to help you, but this American Express is becoming your God. You're relying on it more than you are me.
It's like we didn't even give God time to answer.
Yeah.
Before we would just turn and use the card.
Yeah. So driving down the road, I said, "Hey, hand me the American Express." She didn't know what I was going to do, and I cut it up. I cut it in half in the car and said, "We've been relying on this, and we're just going to we're going to cut this up to where we can't even use it, and God's just going to have to show up." And He did, through people at the church, my grandma. I mean, people were literally buying us groceries. We did not have the extra money to buy groceries. We were struggling to even pay our payments, and we cut up the American Express and just truly had to rely on God. Well, we started praying. We listed our house, and God sold our house, and we actually made good, for the time, we made a good profit on the house. We paid off pretty much all our debt. Mm-hmm. We moved into a duplex, just tried the simplified life, and we were doing well. For at the time in our life, we had cut all our bills down. Yeah. I was working. We were able to do things, actually go out and eat, and have a little extra money, and started savings, or I don't know. I guess just
we didn't save yet.
Yeah, we didn't save, but we just felt like we were making good money. And my grandparents were trying to sell the house that I grew up in, and it was 2 houses on 8 acres, and I wanted to buy it. I didn't really ask God about it. I didn't pray about it. I just knew that if I didn't buy it, somebody else might, or that they might lose it, and I wanted it. And so I went and got the money, worked the deal out with my grandpa, and we bought the house. In the deal, my grandparents, we remodeled the smaller house, and my grandparents moved into it, and we would move into the bigger house. But that's not all we bought. We bought a boat. I bought a custom Harley. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what else.
Some equipment and
a bunch of equipment.
And I just want to say, up until this point, when we got married, I was barely 19 when he was building the first house. As far as how that worked in a marriage, I just let him do I didn't know. Like, I wasn't concerned. We didn't necessarily talk about what we were going to do financially. He had already owned his own business. He just went and did what you thought we needed to do. And same, that was where we were even at this point. I feel like with your grandparents' house, it wasn't necessarily a decision we made together. It was just, this is what we're going to do. This is what I feel like I want to do this. And so that changed later, and we'll get to that. But that's how we did things at that point. You just did, and I was like, okay.
Well, you did the very first fight that we had. She backed me, or kind of, I bought a custom Harley, and she was not happy about it, and we got in a big fight about it, and I bought it anyway, and it was probably one of the biggest.
I feel like you asked me about that one, and I had disagreed with the idea of it. You
didn't want me to buy it, and I bought it anyway, but it was like one of the biggest money pits. The battery, it had a custom paint job. The battery blew up on it, got battery acid all over the paint job. I had to tear it all down, have it repainted. Had tons of problems with the motor. When I finally sold it, lost a ton of money on it. And then the repairs that I even done on it, we done on a line of credit that we had. I wasn't even paying cash or paying out of pocket on the thing. But yeah, that was the beginning of God teaching me to find counsel through my wife, us talking and praying about things and agreeing together. And if we didn't agree on it, to not do it. That didn't exist at that time. I told her, like, I'm gonna do what I want, and I didn't really give her a choice in it, which was a huge mistake. But at the time, I didn't know it. I just thought, I'm the man. I make the decisions. She's just along for the ride. But so yeah, we sold the house. We were in a really good spot. And I feel like God bailed us out. When we were in that, when we first built that house, before we sold the house, we had honored God with paying our tithes. It was just the very beginning. And there was other things we were doing. We were starting to learn of what it means to pay tithes and offering above our tithes, giving of our time, giving of our money, of our things that we had, taking people to church, helping in the youth, just different things. But financially, the selfishness and the pride of what we had still was there. We didn't learn our lesson. So God bailed us out. We sold the house and we got in a really good spot, but then we added even more debt. After God bailed us out, we went right back in and even more. The house.
Way more.
Yeah, the house we bought from our grandparents, we should have never bought. The boat we should have never bought.
I think we upgraded my car to something crazy expensive.
Yep. Yeah, and it was just, I had
if you want it and you can get a loan on it, then go get it. That's that's really what we were taught even. I mean, that's what you had known with your grandpa and stuff. I mean, finances is not what we were taught growing up.
No, I think even somebody would have tried to teach me. I was just caught up in trying to prove something by what I had. I thought I found an identity into that and didn't realize how much. So we bought my grandparents' house, moved my grandparents into the side house. I had two houses that just had a breezeway basically in between them. And just working my butt off, trying to get caught up. It went okay for a little while because we had money from the house when we sold the house. And so probably the first, I don't know, maybe year that we were there, we done okay.
Yeah.
But we just kept adding payments and we took a vacation. Just really not knowing how to be good stewards.
Right.
And so fast forward, and we get so far behind on the house that we get a loan to help us get caught up on the house payments that we're behind. I ended up, it was then the house crash happened, and there was no work around here. I actually ended up driving out to Louisiana, working out there, trying just to dig ourselves out of the hole, but the hole just kept getting deeper and deeper. I was working my butt off. I was away from my kids and my wife, and it got to a point to where we just knew we just were not going to be able to save the house. And
it got to the point too, we had so many payments, and our house payment was our biggest payment, and not knowing it, that's just the payment we chose not to make if there wasn't enough money. It just seemed smarter to make 5 payments than one big payment, which we later learned you take care of your home. But so that was a big mistake that we were making too.
Yeah. So in the midst of that, it took a while before when our house went into foreclosure. It took a while before they kicked us out. We lived there like a year without paying anything, which is terrible. But we just didn't know. We were trying to. I guess we were hoping that God would turn it around for us and we'd be able to save the house. And I also couldn't file bankruptcy because if I filed bankruptcy, it would put my grandparents out. And in the midst of this, we had bought a house that was in front of my grandparents' house, and we used as a rental. And so when we knew we were going to lose the house, I started remodeling it and trying to fix it up so I'd have a place for my grandparents to go. And in the midst of all this, we were still living for God. We were going to church. We were praying and praying.
We paid our tithes.
And
God provided, even though we were making bad choices. And I mean, he didn't provide necessarily our house payment, but there were times that we couldn't pay our phone bill and God would provide. When Weston, our oldest son, started kindergarten, the night before that, our electricity the day before that.
But that was after we lost our house. No,
that was all during.
Okay.
And the time of people bringing us groceries. Your grandma would continually bring us groceries. The church filled our car full of groceries one Sunday whenever we were in church, walked out to our car overflowing with groceries. These were our hardest years of how are we going to do it? Someone gave money anonymously for you to get caught up on your truck payments.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of people at our house one night on a weekend. I think it was probably a Friday night or Saturday night. And we were just playing board games and just some friends and stuff from the church. And there was one of my buddies said, "Hey, man, there's a couple guys at the window with flashlights. And they're shining through the window." And we probably had 20 people from church at the house. And I knew, right when he said that, I knew it was somebody to come and get her to repo her car. So we're at home around the people that, we're friends with and that with our church group or whatever. And they have to sit there and watch her car get repoed from the house. You talk about a low point, like embarrassment and feeling like such a loser, such a failure. And there's nothing I could do. At that point, I just had to accept it, went out into the garage, just sat on the steps and opened the garage door for them and just just separated myself from everybody that was in the living room. And, at that point, it was like, what am I going to say? I didn't want to talk to anybody. And one of my buddies come out and put his arm around me when I was sitting on the steps. And he's like, "Man, God's going to get you through. You're going to be okay." And at that time, I'm like, no, he's not. God's not going to get me through. God's frustrated with me. This is just part of me not doing right. And so her car got repoed.
I just want to add in that during the car getting repoed, we were actually on a fast. It was when our church had just started the 21-day corporate fast at the beginning of the years. My first time ever to fast. And at the end of that 3 weeks, they had asked us to give our testimony of how the fast went. So, but somehow in the middle of that, reading his word and digging in, we were finding God and not slowly our identity and our things was changing to, our identity in Christ.
Yeah.
And so the timing seemed really terrible, but I know God knows what he was doing. And so we did get up and testify to the church about, my car got repoed during the 21-day fast, but God, moved in our hearts and minds. That was the first time I'd really ever gotten into his word and started reading it in my life. And so he just began to open that up to me, which was really incredible. So, a good came out of it.
Yeah. So our car got repoed, and then shortly after that, we lost the house. My aunt and uncle had a house that it just got available around that time.
Yes.
And they blessed us. They allowed us to move into it, they charged us a really cheap rent to help us out.
Yes, and we were actually fixing to rent a house at double the price
Yeah.
when that came up. And so God, again, provided, just the best case scenario and not seemed like a bad situation. But
even in that, it was a struggle to pay our very first month's rent. We were late, even the first month. So we got my grandparents moved into a trailer house that I had, that I remodeled, put them in there because I couldn't file bankruptcy. Because if I filed bankruptcy, I had to file on everything, including that rent house that I had. And so I kept that, put them in there. And so then we moved into the rent house, and she had lost her car that I had traded in. I had a real nice fancy truck. I traded it in for just a roll-up windows, vinyl floor, just as cheap as I could find work truck. And it got to where I couldn't even fill it up. I'd have to be real cautious of how much fuel that I put in the truck to where I'd have enough money to maybe get something to eat.
and there was the time after my car got taken that I didn't even have a car.
Yeah.
So that was very challenging.
Yeah, we had to borrow my grandma's car a lot, and they started
And-
kind of getting annoyed that we were having to, because we had at that time 2 kids.
And they were in sports, and I had to get them to school and back, and so that was hard. And then we borrowed my mom's car for a minute and just really felt like we were burdening everyone around us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the point I would have driven anything just to get my own car again. So
Yep.
you can tell how God bless us with that.
Yeah, so my grandfather had bought a little S10, a Chevy S10. It was just an older one. I don't even know why he had it. It's an extra vehicle or something, but he gave that to us, I think.
I don't remember that.
Well, maybe not.
No, you just were able to go out and buy, but it was cheap.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, but anyway, I had a buddy of mine had a I know. My grandpa told me that after we had found your vehicle, my grandpa said that we could have had that S10, but we had already got your vehicle. Actually, a guy that worked with me, he had, his father-in-law had a 98 Ford Expedition. Wasn't it a 98,
no
97,
idea,
something like that?
I was happy.
And they wanted $4,000 for it. Well, I had 2, and they let me give them $2,000 and pay off. They gave me a certain time to pay off the other $2,000. And Jennifer and her mom were at Cracker Barrel, and we were trying to find a car, and I was telling her I only got $2,000, and I was kind of showing her the cars of what we could get with $2,000 because before all this, she had read the Dave Ramsey book, right?
I don't think we have Dave Ramsey yet.
Yeah, because we borrowed your mom's car to get there. Or we were driving your mom's car when we went to the class.
Yeah. Oh, we did? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then, yeah.
But anyway, she taught me into going to a church in Farmington had a Dave Ramsey class, and she taught me into going. I didn't want to go. We had to borrow the $100 to even pay to go to the thing, and but once I went, I'm glad I did. But he talked about buy a vehicle you can pay cash, don't go get loans, and it didn't have to be, they called it their Dave Ramsey vehicle. But I was showing her vehicles that were like $2,000, and they were not ideal. The old station wagon I showed her, some old minivans that were 200,000-300,000 miles. I mean, there really wasn't much to choose from for $2,000. Well, this Ford Expedition, even though it was an older vehicle, it was immaculate. They took so good care of it. Even though it was older, it looked new. And it was a nice SUV. It was 4-wheel drive. And so I surprised her I think I sent her a picture of a station wagon, old rugged station wagon. I was like, hey, this is what I was able to get. It was $2,000. And I was like, I'm going to come to Cracker Barrel and meet you and your mom. I want you to see it. And so I'll go in there and I find her and I start walking around like I can't find it. And I unlock it because they had remote lock and unlock, which, when you lose everything, like that's even a plus, excitement. But I, showed her the vehicle and she was just so excited and thankful. Mm-hmm. She didn't say nothing like, this is all I get, or this is nothing like the car I had, because she had a really nice car before we lost it. And but she absolutely loved it, and it just was so thankful. And so we had a $4,000 car that we only had $2,000 for, and God worked a blessing out for us that we could pay the rest off payments. And then we had my truck, and I had gotten behind on the payments on my truck. And it was to the point to where anytime I'd go to Lowe's or go somewhere, I was worried that I was going to walk out and my truck be gone because I was behind like 3 payments. And I was headed to Lowe's. I got a phone call from our pastor, and he said, "Hey, Dylan, can you come by the church? I need to talk to you about something." And I didn't have much work, and so me and a buddy were remodeling the kitchen at the church because we had a bunch of free time because there wasn't a lot of work around here, and if I wasn't traveling, so I was helping the church. Anyway, I got the phone call, and I thought, oh my goodness, here I am fixing to lose my truck. The church is calling, and they need something done. And I was just having this conversation with God, and I was like, well, God, no matter what happens in my life, I'm just going to serve you. I've just got to, that's the choice I've made. And so if they need something done, I'm just going to go do it with a good attitude. And so I turned the different direction, headed to the church, and Steve said, "Hey, can you come into my office?" Walked into his office, and there was an envelope on his desk, and he said, "Hey, somebody in the church said God put you on their heart. They wanted to bless you," and he handed me an envelope, and I think it was like $1,600, and that got me caught up on all 3 truck payments that I was behind, plus maybe like $100 left over for gas, and it was just in a moment to where I was like, I started realizing God was teaching me. No, because before that, I had such a problem with receiving. I was so prideful, and I hated the fact that we lost everything. I was so embarrassed about all that. But I also didn't want to feel like I was getting handouts. I didn't want to feel like people were having to take care of me and my family. But we got to a point to where we didn't have no choice. If I didn't receive help, we were in trouble. We needed people's help. And I had to learn to be okay with being on the end of a blessing and people taking care of us and helping us and paying her cell phone bill, paying our electric bill, making my truck payment. And so got the truck payment. I started picking up these contracts through Walmart and started traveling all over the country doing these Walmart remodels. And things started looking up.
Yeah, I just want to add, when we lost our home and my car, we still had tons of debt, even though we had lost. And even on the things we lost, they still wanted us to pay portions of that. So we had a stack of bills that was, so big. And that wasn't even like our monthly bills just to keep where we were living
it was stuff
going.
that we had to settle on.
Yeah, it was debts that we owed people, and our phone rang constantly, and they were not always nice, and we didn't always have things to offer them. But we had gotten a prayer cloth one Sunday that was prayed over and anointed, and I just had that laying on top of our stack of bills. And slowly but surely, as we continued to pay our tithes. From the time we committed to paying our tithes way back in our first house with the American Express card, we never, ever wavered with that. That was a priority even as we were losing things. Paying our tithes was never a question for us. When we committed to that, we were in. But that stack, and then Dave Ramsey, that class, and the knowledge that we just had never had the knowledge of how to handle the money that God had given us. So with those things, the stack of debt that we had slowly but surely shrank, and God worked.
Yeah, we had to settle on everything because not filing in bankruptcy, then the debts didn't go away. We would have to work out. They would either settle for a certain amount or we just had to pay it out. Some of them wouldn't settle and you had to pay the whole thing, and just working through all that. But I started traveling and working and was away from my family. Jennifer's having to deal with phone calls at the house, and I was working on a Walmart. I had 2 Walmarts going, and it just got so bad. I was so miserable. I felt like I was living in a nightmare I could not wake up from. I ended up just walking away from Walmarts altogether, coming back home, having no plan, no idea what I was going to do. But I just wanted to be with my family. In this whole process, there was things that God had to teach us, and especially me. For one, I was very prideful and didn't know it. I didn't realize how prideful I was. I was actually brag about not being prideful. That's how prideful I was. And then I had to develop a desire to be around my family, because before that, I really wanted to be gone all the time. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be some big shot contractor to where I had all these commercial projects all over the country, and I thought that would make me somebody. And God gave me a taste of that, and away from my family, I was so miserable, and it gave me a hunger to want to be a part of my wife's life, part of my children's life, to be there, to physically be in their life and be around. And so God, through all that for me, there was nothing to be prideful. When you lose everything and you're having to borrow stuff and people's having to buy your groceries and buy food or clothes for your kids and pay your electrical bill and, all these things. And then the church knew, when she talked about the church buying us groceries, we literally were at church, and we came out, and the church had come together and just stuffed our car full of groceries, which was awesome. But at the same time, it was, as a man, you're like, man, everybody knows I'm a loser. Everybody knows that I can't even buy my kids, my family groceries. And so it was a struggle, because it was a blessing, but it was also an embarrassment. And I heard a message in the midst of this, and it was a lady at our church. She preached a message on Wednesday night, and the title was, or I don't know what the title, but what the message was about is to be so consumed by your problems that you're no good for anybody else. To where you're so consumed with praying for your issues, your struggles, so overwhelmed by your problems that you're no good for God to use in any other situation. And so God also taught me that even through hard times, I couldn't stop serving Him. That God wanted to use me even though I was going through struggles. That God still had a plan. And when I started doing that, it really helped me to not just go crazy over the fact of stuff that I couldn't change, or the mess that I got myself into. We got ourselves in the financial mess by all the stuff we bought. I mean, it wasn't like some disease or sickness struck us. It was just bad decisions. And then it got to a point to where we couldn't pull ourselves out and just lost everything. And God had to teach us a lesson.
I think up until that moment of that message, too, we were completely consumed with our needs and our problems.
Oh, yeah, that's all we prayed about.
Always, and never really looked outside of our own situations. And
it broke my heart for other people, because before that, when everything was going good, I would see people that maybe were homeless or people that were filing bankruptcy, and I would be like, it's their own fault. They're lazy. They don't want to work. They've made their bed. They lie in it. And I just had no sympathy for people that had lost stuff, because I thought they're just not willing to work hard. And when we lost everything, I never quit working. I was working harder then than I do now. I mean, I was working myself to death. I would work days, nights, anything that I could do, and lost everything anyway. So then God had to take that ignorance away from me, and I realized that sometimes things just happen, and people it just softened my heart for taught me that I just can't judge anybody. I mean, I've got my own problems. I've made my own mistakes. Anything that's good in me is what God has put in me. Anything that I have is because God has chosen to give it to me, and he could take it away at any moment. And I want to be content whether I have a lot or if I have nothing. And one of the great things for me and her both is when we didn't have anything and we were living in the rent house and she didn't have a vehicle, we really became closer, and just our marriage got stronger. My relationship with my kids grew.
There was no finger pointing, and we've talked about this several times, but it wasn't a blame game or, your fault, my fault. I didn't work, so I wasn't necessarily contributing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's extremely important. Jennifer never one time came to me and said, you need to fix this. This is your fault. I can't believe that you let my car get repoed. I can't believe that we lost our house. Never one time, not even close to ever blaming me for the situation that we were in. And I think if she would have, it probably would have been the last thing that just would have broke me. I probably would have just gave up. But the fact that she never blamed me, and she would write me letters comparing me to men in the Bible. When I felt the lowest, she would, especially when I was working out of town, she would write a letter or a prayer or something and slip it into my bag or give it to me of how she viewed me. And I didn't view myself that way. But I thought, man, she sees something in me that, and even in this moment, I don't. And so she spoke life into me, and it made me, even though we're losing everything, it made me never want to quit. I would say, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I would tell her, like, I just want to quit. I can't do this. But because she would speak life into me, I would get up the next day and go and try again.
Yeah, it definitely made our marriage stronger because we chose to just come together and seek the Lord and not blame or let it tear us apart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I knew that she definitely wasn't with me for what I could provide for her. She married me just because she loved me, and she was definitely with me through thick and thin. So, and another thing, our pastor, Steve, he came to me and said, man, God spoke to me. And this was in the midst of, I was losing everything. Mm-hmm. And he said, God told me that one day you're going to be a cash-ran business. And I told him, I said, Steve, I appreciate that, but I just don't see it. And I said, I just can't even believe it. I said, you can believe it for me, and you can pray for me, but I just don't even see how there's even a way. And that's how I felt about it. I thought, there's just no way. I told her, I said, we're probably just going to have to accept that we're just going to be poor. We're not probably never going to own another house. Especially when I quit working on the Walmarts, I was like, I didn't even graduate high school. I dropped out in 10th grade. I don't have no college degree. All I know is construction. And so I was like, during the house crisis, there wasn't a lot of work. Most of the builders that at the time when I was bricking houses, they went under. They weren't building any houses. And I just had in my mind that we were just going to be poor and barely scraping by. And it sucked. I didn't like that thought, but I was okay with it. I thought if I have my family and if I'm serving the Lord and God is moving in my life, then I'm good with that. I lost all the worrying about what people thought and trying to be something that I wasn't. God definitely humbled me, softened my heart to people. And we just accepted, like, if that doesn't, and she told me, she's like, if we don't own a house, it's okay. Yeah. As long as we're happy with each other, we're loving God, we got our family, we're good. And that's how we went forward. We went forward to just being like, we're just content, God. We were thankful that we had each other. We were thankful that our marriage had grown closer, and through all that, we actually become friends. Before that, we really weren't even friends. We were just married. True. When something big, exciting, or terrible happened in my life, she was not the first one for me to call and tell. Most of the time, I didn't even tell her. She would just find out by hearing me talking to somebody else on the phone or whatever, because we just weren't friends. We were just married and we were doing life together, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So it was just a process. We didn't know it. We had no idea what God was doing in our life. You know, I mean, it sucked and it was tough, but
we learned to communicate through that and to make decisions together.
And pray together.
And, you know, you've kind of said this without saying it, but you know, Dylan has always worked hard, even when he didn't know what to get up and do the next day. He would get up and figure something out. He is not a lazy man. And so I think with just his ambition to figure stuff out and seek the Lord, it allows God to open up doors. And you say all the time, God opens up doors I could never open on my own, puts me in front of people that, you know, I don't even see myself worthy to be working for them or for them to be seeking me out to do work. But he just has a drive to never stop. And, you know, he'll say he wants to quit, but he always gets up the next day and keeps going. And so he's quit lots of nights, but he gets back up the next day and keeps going. And I'm very thankful for that. And that, you know, that on its own is not enough. But when you seek the Lord and just trust him for your next move, you don't even always know your next move. I mean, he's really opened up doors that just, I say this all the time. He's blown our mind time and time again. So do you want to move to when we did get to buy a house?
There's a couple things. Tommy Barnett, because I do say I quit. I tell her, that's it, I'm done, I quit. I say it all the time. It kind of feels good just to say that. Tommy Barnett said one time, you can say you're going to quit 100 times as long as you get up the next day and don't. As long as you don't quit, you can say it as many times as you want, but you really just can't quit. And so I tell God all the time, like, that's it. I'm done, God. I can't do this anymore. But God knows I'm going to I don't have no other choice. I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to keep doing what I can do. But you know, when you have God, you know, it sometimes, even though you serve God, it gets overwhelming. You know, David said, lead me to the rock that's higher than me. Sometimes you get to a point to where you feel like there's no place I can go, Lord. I cannot go another step. I don't have another thought. I can't make this decision. I have no clue what to do. So God, if you don't elevate me into something, I have no option. And that's okay to be in that place to where you're like, God, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to think about this or how to react, but God does. Yeah. And in those moments, we just have to say, God, I'm just in your hands. I don't know what to do. And God's okay with that. So we get in the rent house, and I had quit Walmart to come back, and
I think we were in the rent house a little over 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, when I was working in Jennings, Louisiana, I was going to a church. I would always find, anytime I was working out of town, I would find a church and would go there on Sundays. And I was in this was a big church, probably, I don't know. It's called Glad Tidings. I don't know. It's maybe 1,000, 1,500 people congregation. And I don't even know what the message was about, but they were in a song or something. It got real quiet, and this lady started speaking in tongues. And it was crazy how clear she was. Because, the church was a huge church, and I don't know where she was at. But the church got real quiet, and she spoke in tongues. wasn't that long, and but for some reason I was like, I got to listen to what's going to be said, because I just knew that it was going to have an interpretation, and I knew it was going to be for me, and if you don't know what tongues is just a language that God. It's like it's the Holy Spirit speaking through somebody through a language that only God can understand and only God can interpret. And it might sound weird to you, and that's okay. It did to me too in that moment, because I was like, especially the fact that the church was so huge, and I could hear this lady. I'm like looking around, like, where's she at? But anyway, the interpretation was just simply this. It said, God will put you in the presence of men that you have never walked before. That's all it was. But I knew in an instant that was a word for me, and I started quoting that. I just knew. I didn't know what that even looked like, but I knew that was for me. And so get back home. I have no game plan. I just started picking up small, whatever work I could get, like little entryways and just really small jobs. But God started putting me in line with people that I had really no reason I should have a chance to even work for them. I mean, some of the homes and some of the builders that we work for now, if I was to have to give them a resume, there's no way they would hire me. I mean, it was literally God opened a door that my entire life and my accomplishments and whatever I have done to that point would have never opened. And God would, every time I would just remind myself, God told me he would put me in the presence of men I've never worked before or never walked before. And so God started opening up these doors, and some of the builders that God opened up then we're still working for now. And God showed us a niche of something, you know, we started doing foundations. We would clear the lot, dig the footing, lay the block, backfill it, and pour the slab. And God just grew that. That's what we do now, amongst a bunch of other things. But so God started blessing my business. I remember I bought a brand new dump trailer, and I was so excited.
I would say we paid cash for it.
We paid cash for it.
This is when we did start living in the cash run business.
Yeah, I was able to. It got to a point to where I was able to actually put a full tank of gas full tank of fuel in my truck. I had bought a dump trailer, paid cash for it.
At this point, we never got debt, like useless debt again. No. Never got another credit card. Never got a loan on anything that was not going to make money for the business.
Yep. And I wanted to, and at this time things started picking up, and I wanted to get a new truck, but I was patient. I didn't go out and get a loan. We started saving money back, like we were making a payment, and just saving money. And we still had the whole pile of debt and all that looming over us.
It was lessening.
Yeah, and we were cutting it off, but we had a line of credit that I had maxed out. I had maxed out just living full, fixing that motorcycle I told you all about that I should have never bought. Payroll, material, and God worked it out to where I made them an offer on the line of credit. I had saved up some money. It was a crazy low offer. They accepted it. We were able to pay that off. We had paid off everything else.
Okay, you're not giving enough details.
Well, you go ahead. You can explain the details.
Well, I was just saying, this has happened we had started looking to buy a house, like dreaming, not knowing if we'd ever get to buy a house again, but we started looking.
And this was 4 years after losing the house.
This is 4 years later.
Year 4.
And we had actually at this point gotten to where all the debt was gone but this line of credit. And it was $120,000 on a line of credit on the house that we lost in foreclosure. And it was maxed out. We owed $120,000. And so, yes, we had found a home. And I don't know if you want to go into the details of that. But in order to even get a loan to buy a home, we had to get rid of that line of credit. And it seemed impossible. That was the last little envelope on the desk with the prayer cloth on top. And I really thought, I didn't have very good faith in that, because I didn't see how that we would ever get rid of that.
And they would call us on
all
that
the time,
about every day.
And so I actually was gone to my dad's with the kids, and you were home and answered the phone. That's when we had home phones back then, I think.
Well, God had convicted me about it.
Yeah.
Because it was the one that it was just so big that I had just ignored it. And I knew it would never go away, but I just couldn't. $120,000 was just, it might have been, it might as well have been $10 million. I mean, it was just impossible. In that point of our life, it was just impossible. There was just no way we could come up with that. And they wouldn't even let us make payments. They wanted it paid in full. They weren't willing to work with us.
And so you answered the phone while
Yeah,
I
well,
was
I had
gone.
read a scripture
Yeah.
that the righteous are bold as lions, but the wicked flee when no one pursues them. And I had read that a long time before that, and God had been using that scripture to make me face my problems, to face my issues and the things that I really didn't want to face. And I was thinking about that scripture, and the phone rang. I knew it was them, and God just said, "You need to answer the phone. You have to be bold like a lion. Just face the problem." And so I answered the phone, and they go into the spiel. You better give us our money. We're going to, lock all the spiel that they say. And I said, "Look, I've got $9,000. That's all I have. That's all I can get. That's be maxed out. I'll give you everything that I have, but that's all I have." And the guy laughed, and he said, basically, "Do you think we're stupid? There's no way we're going to take $9,000 on $120,000 note." And I said, "I understand that." I said, "If I had more, I would give you more, but $9,000 is all I have." And I said, "So you can take that or take nothing."
And
but
we really didn't even have $9,000 right that second.
No, but I thought
we thought we could come up with that.
I think I maybe had 7. I don't even know why I said 9, but that's what I said. So the guy kind of laughed, and I was like, "Well, at least just tell him, just ask him, And so the guy said, "Well, I'll ask them, but there's just no way they're going to take it." And I was like, "Well, that's what I got." So the guy ends up calling back and said, "You give us the $9,000, and I think I had to have it by the next day. We'll take it." And I was like, "Really?" Like, okay. And so I called Jennifer, and I was like, "You're not going to believe this." They just said they would settle for $9,000, and this debt would be wiped out. And so we come up with the $9,000.
Well, I would say someone gifted us 5.
I think 4.
Okay.
My big brother.
His big brother had no idea what
I
we were
I didn't
facing.
call
We
in
did
and
not
ask him for it.
He called us.
Said
and
the Lord
said
put it
the
on his
Lord
heart.
put it on his heart. I mean, right then, the next day, that day, I don't even know. It was right then. So there was God already working.
Yeah, it was
It was crazy. And
yeah.
so I have to tell the next part of that. So I was at my dad's for Christmas. This was December 30th, I'm pretty sure, maybe 31st. We later found out when we got talking to our accountant, how does this work with taxes? There had been a bill out.
Well, they first told us that we were going to have to pay taxes
on the remainder of that. We had profited that other money.
What they forgave us, the other amount, $111,000,
Yeah.
we would have had to pay taxes on that.
Yeah, so there was then we found out there was a bill that Obama had out because of the 2008 house crash, that he was forgiving all of those debts where you didn't have to file taxes
any
on
debt
those
that was
things.
forgiven.
And so anyway, that was expiring on January 1st, 2 days later after we settled. Had no idea that was even a thing. So we didn't even have to pay capital gains tax on the money. I mean, God just worked. He worked in ways we didn't even know we needed him to work in the right timing. So we really felt like, wow, he had our back, and he got us through that, and it was really awesome. And then we were able to buy a house.
Yeah. So we just one day I just was like, "Hey, we ought to just start looking at houses just for fun." And when I said that, I thought there's no way we're going to be able to get a house. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think it's possible. I just thought it would just be fun. We always we would go on the parade of homes. We enjoyed looking at houses, and I just thought, who knows? We just kind of look, and we try to be really budget conscious of a house that would never put us in a bind, a house that we could afford without any problems, not get behind. We weren't going to go into the same mess. And so we were just looking at houses, seeing what was even available. And this lady that helped us, man, she was a godsend. I don't know where she came from.
We feel like she was an angel. We don't know where she came from. We never saw her again.
Yeah. She was a little big firecracker, but she, and I think she told us that her dad was a broker or something, and she just kind of done what the real estate deal just kind of for fun, just something to do. And but anyway, she showed us some houses, and there was a house that had been in foreclosure, and it was a beautiful home. It was like new. It's 2-story. It was four bedrooms with an office, or 4 bedrooms with a bonus room. And we looked at it, but the price, even in foreclosure, the price that they were asking, we just couldn't afford. Even if God was to make a miracle and we could buy a house, it just was not in our budget. And but we really liked it. It would have fit our family so well. And we were looking at some other houses and stuff, and we just felt like they just weren't. There was just nothing in our budget, and we were okay with that. We went and looked, and it was just fun. It was just fun. It was kind of like a date night. I mean, just us looking at houses, kind of dreaming. And we get home one night. Oh, and she told us, she said, "Hey, that house you really like, it's off the market. The one that was in foreclosure, that we just thought it would fit our family perfect." She called us and she said, "Hey, it's not even on the market anymore. Somebody must have bought it. They took it off." And we're like, "You know what? It's okay. You know, we really couldn't afford it anyway." And well, she ended up calling me back that same night at 9:00 at night. I was sitting in the living room, and she said, "Hey, the reason that house wasn't on the market anymore is because they took it off because they were lowering the price, and they had lowered it like $68,000. All of a sudden, it was in our budget." And she said, "If you make an offer on it right now, if nobody else makes an offer by midnight, it'll be yours." And so we offered what they were asking after they dropped it, $168,000.
68,000, yeah.
Oh yeah, 68,000. End up accepting our offer, and at this time we didn't even know if we could get financing. We just it just felt like God was working, and end up getting financing. On the deal, it said that it had a major water leak. They wouldn't even, because it was in foreclosure, they wouldn't even let you go inside. You just had to buy it. We couldn't go inside and
we looked
or no,
at
we
it.
could look inside, but you couldn't turn.
Yeah.
The water couldn't be turned on. Electric wasn't on, and it said it had a major water leak. So we bought the house, and I had no idea if it had busted lines inside. It had been empty for a while, so I thought, well, the pipes are probably frozen. It was 2-story. You know, worst case, the pipes are busted in the second floor and have to tear the sheetrock out. But we didn't care. We were like, man, we'd be happy. We would have probably pulled buckets of water into the house to make it work. We were just excited that God gave us another chance to own a home. And we got in there once we got it approved. I mean, I don't even think they ever went upstairs. The upstairs looked brand new. Yeah. The appliances all looked brand new.
Still had tape in the stove, like they never even used it. We think maybe just one guy lived there,
But I went and but I still had the deal worrying about the major water leak, and I went down to the Washington County Water, got the meter turned on, or got approved where I could get the meter set, and went and turned it on. And found that this was after closing. As soon as after closing, I went down, paid the water bill where I could get the water turned on, went to the house, turned the water on, found the leak within 1 hour. It was actually in the yard. The actual yard line had broke. I dug it up, fixed it that night, and the very next day we had water, and everything in the house was just fine. Yeah. It was perfect.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I think in the end we paid maybe $68 a square foot for that house or something. I mean, that's just how God, you don't pay anything a square foot for a house. And that was just a miracle. God worked a miracle in getting us
and what was
house.
crazy, that house was by far the nicest thing we had ever lived in. I mean, all the houses we lived in before.
Well, the house you built us when we first got married was nice, but it didn't feel nice because it felt like a prison.
We never could enjoy it.
Yeah.
But all the other houses were old.
Yes.
Stuff didn't work. The big house we lived in had no central heat and air.
So it was nice.
Yeah. So yeah, we felt like, we're just so thankful.
Yeah.
We're so thankful.
I don't know, because I'm like, we could go on and on, but to kind of jump forward a little bit, I just sum it up. And 2 years after that, we were able to sell that house, make a great profit on it, and
Sold it in like 2 days.
yes, for full price. The realtor said, no way you're going to get that. And that's exactly what we got, to the dollar.
God James, if you're listening.
Yeah. God just continued to work as we honored him with the things that he has given us. And he still today, I want to tell the story about the house we're in now, because that's, but so anyway, we moved multiple more times throughout that. And every time there's a story of how God just.
Well, when we sold that house, we actually ended up having to move into the trailer house. Because in this time, my grandparents had passed away.
Yeah.
And I still had this little trailer house that I think it was like 1,000 square feet that my grandma and grandpa,
that they had lived in after we had lost our house. And so, yes, we went from a big, nice 2-story house to, how big is that?
It might have been 1,000 square feet.
Yes. Old and tiny. But, we just made it work. We didn't know what our next step was. That was what was available for us right then. And God is really, he's helped me. I feel like even more than you, I needed to learn. Yeah. Like, I can be happy with plenty and I can be happy without. Like,
yeah, because when we were in the trailer house, I was like, hey, we want to have people over. And she was like, no, we're not having.
We did.
I know, but at first you did not want to.
I will say that every house we've ever lived in, from the tiny duplex to the 1,100 square feet house to the old houses, it did not matter. We've always opened our doors and let God's people, our friends and family, just fill it. And, people want to get together and hang out, and God's given us the gift of hospitality. But, and that's just another way to honor him with the things that we have. You don't have to have a great big giant house to have company. We have done it in all scenarios. And so we actually moved from this little bitty trailer house. Dylan had this.
I found some land.
Well, we had already built the shop. He built a shop for his business, and he had the thoughts that we should list the shop and land for sale, and we should list the trailer and see which one sold first, and that would kind of determine our next move. Well, once again, God worked.
Well, at that time we had no idea how hard it was to sell a trailer house.
Yes.
We didn't, we're just like, we'll just put it up for sale, but we didn't realize that to get financing for a trailer house is extremely hard for some people because it's a trailer house.
Yes. And I'll say, like, at this point, things were not always just rainbows after this. We still had moments and times where work looked uncertain, and maybe we were going to go backwards to where we couldn't, money was not flowing good and we couldn't afford things. And so that is when we would make a move. That is when we would list the house for sale, always trying to stay ahead of, instead of get ourselves.
We didn't do that the first time.
No, but instead of get ourselves back in a problem, being willing to sell the things we had and
give it all up
to not go back to losing things. And we continued to pay cash for things. It's easier to sell things when you've paid cash for them, and then you can get money. So anyways, we were back into one of those.
And we didn't tell the story where I upgraded your vehicle.
Okay, well, we can leave that out. But
we sold that vehicle. That's how we got cash when we were living in a trailer house.
And you downgraded my vehicle. Yeah. He surprised me with a new
I thought
van.
She'd be excited. I didn't realize she didn't like it. It was a Honda Odyssey. I thought it was like the big cool thing.
Anyways, he has always had a thing of surprising me with vehicles, but that was his one fail. He downgraded me.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I was thinking it was a lot better on gas. The Expedition, we were thankful for it, but it was terrible on gas.
Yes, but anyways, there's so many stories I was just thinking about too when we did sell the Honda Odyssey, how we ended up getting to pay our taxes that year with it. But God is just. There's so much. Anyway, Riley asked me if I needed tissue before this, and I said, I don't cry about finances. But when I really think about his goodness throughout it all, it does just kind of get me. But so we were at a point looking like we needed to sell something just just to be safe, that we still had enough money set back. You know, when you own a business, you got to have cash flow. But so we listed our little trailer house for sale. We listed our nice big shop that he had built for our business on some land for sale. And God, I mean, within the first few days,
we'll bring James back into the story.
Same realtor.
Because I told James what I wanted for it, and he's like, dude, it's not going to happen. I've been in this a long time.
Yeah,
I'm
for our trailer house, yes.
And I was like, dude, I just feel like that's what we need to get. And
full price offer, cash offer.
Cash price. He is like, and he said,
within a few days.
And James, when you see this, you're going to have to comment. So you can back the truthfulness of it. But he said, man, I've been in real estate however long, and he's like, I never thought that this would happen. But yeah, we got a full price cash offer, which was a huge deal because, you know, he was like, dude, I don't even think people get financing for this. And he said, I don't think they get financing unless you get lucky and have somebody do a cash offer. And that's exactly what we got.
Yeah. And so that left us homeless.
Yeah.
So he had this idea that we would move into our shop that was honestly just a giant metal building with all his work stuff in it. There was an office and a bathroom and an upstairs like conference room. And he said, we can live in there just short term while we figure out what we'll do next. And so I agreed to that.
And at this time we had 4 kids.
We had 4 children. So we moved into this upstairs conference room. Really favors the room we're in right now.
On the floor.
We put 3 queen mattresses on the floor.
And I took plumbing pipe, and made clothes racks
for our clothes. So they lined the wall. It was an interesting time. We did not have a kitchen. We
had a
lived.
Microwave.
Well, I set up like a makeshift
coffee pot and a microwave.
Folding table, microwave. I had to get the kids to school still. Life kept going. We were living out of.
And it was wintertime.
It was. So we had to have heaters.
Big diesel work heaters.
So in the middle of the shop part where all his work stuff was, we kind of made this like semicircle with our couches and recliner.
Yeah,
we hung a TV.
Made a living room in the shop.
It was Brinkston loved it. He rode his little bike around
all
our living room. It. Yeah. It honestly, looking back, best memories, some of the best memories, but it was so like it was everything opposite of your normal living scenario.
And we hosted people there too.
We did have people there while we didn't even have a house. So anyways, and we began digging through boxes. It got really junky because we were trying to find stuff all the time, and your work stuff was in there. So there's a lot of stories to that. But we decided to build the living quarters inside the shop, and he did that in record time. Thank you, Jesus. Got us where we did have a living room, 2, 3 bedrooms eventually. But
I finished it like 2 days before Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. So we moved in there on the end of October. It was Shaylee's birthday. I remember all her birthday toys out. And then less than 2 months were in there. But in that 2 months, and we won't go into, that's a whole nother podcast, but the Lord had showed, his sister had passed away. And God spoke to our hearts to open our home to Lily and Aaron, our 2 daughters that we ended up adopting. So our family grew from 4 children.
6 to 8.
6, yeah, there was now 8 of us. Now, they didn't come right then.
Still with just 1 bathroom.
Yes. So anyways, they did. A few months later, we were in the living quarters. It was still small for a family of 6. Now we were a family of 8 living in this little shop living quarters, 1 bathroom, like he said, 1 shower. And so we were dreaming of building a house on the backside of the property. He had cleared it and made it look beautiful. As we started running the numbers of that, it was going to be very expensive to build the home that we were dreaming of.
Yeah, and I would say with all that, the financial struggle, it definitely taught us to be patient. Yeah. We would have ideas, but we were just like, we would just think about it and really just wanted God to direct us. We didn't want to we were afraid to do something out of God's will. And it really just calmed us down. We would think about it, we would talk things out and just really put it in God's hands. And if it worked, great. And if it didn't, we knew that God would have something better. We really didn't necessarily worry too much of what it looked like. We would just kind of dream about it, and just pray about it. But we wanted it to be in God's hands, not in ours.
Yes, absolutely. And so, our anniversary was August. We went out to dinner and we were talking about, what we dreamed up for the next 5 years of our lives, what you thought, what I thought. And I just said, I'm ready for a house. It's tight in the shop house. I want to start building a house. And he was like, well, you're going to have to wait. And I said, well, I'm praying that God would allow us to start building a house. Like, I'm ready now. And he said, well, and I said, well, I can pray whatever I want to pray. That's what I'm going to be praying. And so, anyways, so that was that. And I mean, very shortly after that, he called me one day and he said, you will never believe the house that I was just at bidding a job. Am I leaving out? Okay.
Well, before that, a realtor friend of yours.
No, not yet. First.
Yeah, we got an offer for the shop, and I told him I'm not interested.
Oh, that's true.
Somebody had approached us. We didn't have our shop for sale. And a realtor friend of ours, reached out to Jennifer and said, hey, we got somebody interested in your shop if you'd be willing to sell it. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I've got plans to build a house back there. Yeah. I don't want to sell it.
Yes, that is true. And so, anyways, then he went and bid this job at this house. And I was like, what house? And anyway, he said, the house up on the hill. Well, so years before that, we had lived in a neighborhood, and our route.
No, it was even before that. It was when we were looking at houses to rent.
Okay. Well, anyway, we would drive past this one house years and years earlier, and it sat up on a hill, and we would just be like, oh, I love that house. It had land. It was just a beautiful home. So we just would always be like, oh, there's that house again. Just,
We actually drove up the driveway
We
once.
did. We thought it was for sale, and we were like peeking in the windows, and then we realized, oh, somebody lives here. So we like scurried away. Yeah. So anyway, for us, it was just that house, that dream house. Well, he went and bid a job at this house. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool, and he said, well, they've had it for sale, and this is probably where you can take over the story.
Yeah, they had listed it before, and I don't know why it didn't sell, but or I don't even know if they had listed it before. I really don't know that, but
you knew they
were wanting
wanted
to
out
list
of it.
And they had a house inspection done, or maybe they listed it for sale, and somebody had an inspection done, and they had a list of stuff that just needed to be the house inspector wanted fixed, and they were kind of overwhelmed with it, and the lady kind of went through, and they had already bought a lot. They were wanting to get out of the house. They wanted to build a new house. And she was just kind of done with the house, and she wanted to be in a different location, moving her kids to a different school, and she was walking around.
They ended up hiring you to do this work.
Well, they called me to bid the work, and so I went out and I was like, man, they really want out of this house, and she was telling me all the things that the inspector said that they had to get fixed. And so we walked around, and when I left, I called Jennifer and I told her, I was like, you're not going to believe the house that I was at. I actually got to walk inside of it and see it. And the land was beautiful. It's got a creek that goes around it, a bridge you drive across. I mean, I was just like, this house is amazing. And I was like, but they act like they hate it. Like, they want out of there so bad. And I told her, I said, I really feel like I can just make an offer. I was like, I think I'm just going to make an offer and tell them, hey, you don't got to fix anything. I'll just buy it as is, and you guys can get out and move on. And I told her what the offer I was going to make. She's like, they're not going to take that. And I was like, well, that's fine. I'll still send them a bid, but maybe they will. Who knows? And so I made an offer, and I said, but I called the man, the owner, the husband, and I said, hey, man, I just want you to know that I'm willing to make an offer on the house, and you guys don't have to fix anything. We'll buy the house, and y'all can just move out, and we'll take care of all the problems. And I said, or I'll just send you the quote on the work that we can do, and if you guys want us to do that, fine. If you don't, no big deal. And so I told him the offer, and he's like, oh, yeah, man, we can't do that. And so I sent him the quote, and I hadn't heard from him. It's probably 2 months. And then somebody came to us the second time about our shop in the midst of this, asked if we would sell. And I was like, no, man, I was already looking at house plans, and we were planning on building in the back. Well, then the guy that made the offer, he called. And he said, hey, man, is that offer still good? And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, I think we're going to take you up on it. If you'll still honor it, we'll sell you the house. And so then we call the realtor and like, hey, we're willing to sell it. But I told him, I said, this is what I want for the shop and the land. If you're not willing to give me this, don't bother me. And so she said, okay, let me call them. But she called right back. Hey, they'll take it. They want it. And I was like, oh, dang. Well, I hadn't even closed on the house yet, and I mean, it was still just like up in the air. And I was like, oh, dang. Well, then I kind of panic set in, like, what are we going to do? We're going to have to move out of the shop and figure that out all over again. And, man, I'm telling you, God just, it's crazy. When we start talking about it, it's just amazing what, man, when you just give it all to God and you just trust Him and you let God change you and who He wants you to be. But, so
I'll say my prayer was that we would start building that year. That's why I said in August that we would be able to start building a house by the end of the year. And you said, no way. Yeah. Well, God did even better and gave us a house at a price
twice as much land
as what we had, twice as much house as we would have ever got to build. Yeah. 6 bedrooms, which fits our giant family perfectly. And so we closed on that at the very end of December.
Well, but even before that, the guy that bought our shop house bought it, gave us the money, let us live there for like 3 months for free, paid me to add more square footage into the shop and I built a safe room in there, done a ton of work in the shop. He paid me to do all that work, let us live there while
we worked on our new
house. Because we remodeled the new house, got everything fixed, all the issues, we remodeled it, added just everywhere, every room we'd done something. Mm-hmm. But we had the money from the profit that we made off of the shop house, got to live at the shop house until we got the house completely finished, plus done more work for the guy that he paid me for. And so when it was all said and done, when he was ready to move in, we were completely done with the full remodel on the house and moved right into a house that was just ready to go. It was no more living in the shop with propane diesel heaters, no kitchen. We had 4 bathrooms. I mean, it was just.
And I truly feel like, yes, some of that, came from our obedience with money and stuff, but also the call that God put on our life to, take in Lily and Aaron. He provided us a place that was going to be more than comfortable for our big family. But we didn't know that at the time. We said yes to Lily and Aaron while we were living in a shop, not a shop house. We didn't have a house. We were living in a shop without a kitchen, without the things. And we said yes to the call that God put in our hearts and lives. And then He began to unfold all the provisions. And that is a whole nother podcast of a story. Yeah. But He's just so good. He's so good.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's a lot of times what people don't realize is that God calls us to make the first step. He says, draw nigh to me, and then I'll draw nigh to you, which means draw close. Draw close to me, and then I'll draw close to you. We take the initiative. We make the yes. Whether it's surrendering our life to Jesus Christ, asking Him to forgive us of our sins, become Savior of our life, honoring Him with our tithes. Like when we started giving tithes was in the worst financial shape that we were in. When the commitment started, it was not like we had the extra money into where we're like, 10%, no big deal. It was a huge deal. Like it was tithes or groceries. And we just.
For a long time.
Yeah, we just said yes to God. And that's how we try to continue. I'd be foolish to say that we nail that 100% all the time. But we want to, we want to serve God. We want to please God. But, the whole podcast is about finance, and we just want to share our story. And God continues to blow our mind with what God does. I mean, it doesn't end there. I mean, it just keeps going on what God, it's the favor of God. It's not, it's God gives us more than what we could even afford. It's not like we're rich. It's just God has given us more than, just more than we could hope for.
And everything, we kind of talked about this today driving, and keeping the attitude of everything we have, not clenching your fist around it. Always just holding it in your hands like this. And if God wants to take things out, you're okay with that. Yep. And you're still going to serve him the same. And he does. I mean, we didn't talk about this, but through all of that, there was a time that we started a second business and it failed. And I mean, there were things, we lost a lot of money, but we didn't lose our home. And we did, we're always just willing to, just let God do what he wants instead of just holding on tight to all the things that we have. God can't do much with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And allowing, like I said, everything that God gives us is God's. Yeah. And if God asks for it, we have to be willing to give it to him. The house that we live in, the past couple of years, the past couple 4th of Julys, we've had over 3,000 people at our home because we do a ministry with the 4th of July. We partnered with our church, and it started the very first year we lived there. I was just sitting in the back looking at the land and this house, beautiful home that God had given us. And I was like, God, I want to give back. I want to be thankful. I want to use this to glorify you, to be some type of ministry. And we started this 4th of July ministry to where we don't necessarily label it as a Christian event. It's just a 4th of July, but we share the gospel during it. We have our whole church come and just love on people. And but it's presented as just a fireworks show. And that was in their 9th year. Or that last year was our 8th year.
Yes, which started at probably 250 people.
Yeah, attending. First year was probably 250 people. In the last couple of years, over 3,000 people each year. But it just, God just blow your mind. But like I said, it took 4 years. We battled 4 years paying debt that was looming over us. 4 years to where I couldn't even fill my truck up. 4 years to where buying groceries was a struggle. When our kids played sports, struggling, like worrying how in the world am I going to get them their cleats and the stuff that they need to pay the fee to get into there. I mean, it was all a struggle. Everything was Christmas. Jennifer loves to give gifts in Christmas, and I had to tell her, like, the boys are going to have to share a gift. I can afford $25. They can either have 2 small gifts, or we'll spend the $25 and they can share the gift. It was. And
we had multiple Christmases where it was almost nothing, or yes, that one Christmas they got like a Batman house that the boys shared. And that was hard for me. But then again, at the end of it, I realized it's not that big of a deal. They're fine. They're happy and content with, and I mean, God, I can't. I've had people slip me $100 before Christmas and say, "Go buy your kids gifts." And I'm telling you, a mama can make $100 go a long way on Christmas. So they have a lot of presents, to unwrap. I mean, I feel like we always struggled at Christmas for a long, long time. And I will never forget Steve and Beth knocking on our door one Christmas when we lived in the big house, and they had a gift for each of our kids. And that was a huge deal because we could barely get them anything. And there's just so much.
Amanda Haney.
Yeah, she was the one that slipped me $100 at church one time, and my mom multiple times. Just so many people. And I'm sure people don't even want to shout out, but Marnie Long mailing us a check for $100, just saying God told her. It's just so much. I mean, God is just, he uses his people. And so now, because we don't have a pile of bills this tall, not only, can we do our tithes, but we can become, we are able to give offerings and to bless people.
And that's our responsibility when God is willing to give, but like she said, you cannot receive with closed hands. And it too can become a challenge when God does start to bless and you worry about, oh my goodness, I can't let anything go because I don't want to go through that. But that's just a miserable way. Then things and finances and money start to become your God again. And I actually had this thought, and I promise you, hearing our whole story, we have nothing to brag about. I mean, we lost everything because of our own ignorance. So, I mean, what we have now is just because what God's chosen to give us. So it's not bragging, but I had this thought. We've given away probably four or five vehicles. It just God lay it on our heart that we know somebody would need a vehicle, and God lay it on our heart, and we would either buy one or give a vehicle that we had.
But we truly know what it feels like to need
it's not,
a vehicle.
Yes. Yeah, and too, like, if God puts it on our heart to do something, if we don't do it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing special about, there is somebody out there. If God's calling to bless somebody, we're honored that God's calling us to do it. Because if we don't do it, somebody else will.
That's true.
And so it's nothing special whatsoever. But I was thinking that there was a single mom that God put on my heart. I don't know if he put it on both, but anyway, we end up blessing her with our Suburban that we had. It was her main car, and God just put it on my heart to bless her with it. But when that happened, God spoke to my heart and said, what Satan one time took from you, or your circumstances took from you, I have now blessed you to where you're willingly giving it away. Like one time when her car got repoed, it got taken from us. We didn't give it away. But God has put us in a position to where when God calls upon us, we, in obedience, give it away. It doesn't have to be taken from us. We choose to give it away because that's what God's called us to do. It's just amazing what God is willing to do if we're just obedient, and it's so rewarding. It's just
which you said the Suburban. Now that alone has a whole story. I mean, God is just so good. We rented a car exactly like that on a vacation one time.
We can't take
I
the
know.
whole nine.
Okay, fine.
How long
I'll
we
stop.
at now? How long we at, Riley?
I'll stop.
I have to do 2 parts.
It's fine. We can be done.
What?
Oh wow. Okay, we'll be done.
Part 2.
You can cut that
Yeah,
part
we've been here
out.
2 hours.
No, 1 hour and 27.
Oh, hour and 30 minutes.
That's good. We can be done. Wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, we're passionate about, because it was a major struggle. I feel like our biggest struggle since we've been married has been finances. To a certain point. That God has gotten to this point to where we try to pay, like when she's saying, we go into debt with equipment, stuff for the business, stuff that will make money, but anything that is outside of that, that's just maybe a want, we do not get it. Number one, if it's ever going to put us in a financial burden, and if we can't pay cash for it, we just don't need it. And when we pay cash for something, if we ever get low on money, we can sell it and recoup cash. And it's because if you just have payments, even if you sell something, all you're doing is getting rid of a payment. You're not really relinquishing any cash that you can use. And if you would just do that, Dave Ramsey says, and shout out to Dave Ramsey. Hopefully he sees this and gives us a shout out. He really did. God used him to change our life financially, to set us on the path moving forward. I mean, of course,
we actually taught Dave Ramsey classes after
you did.
that.
I did.
Okay, yeah, I did. But.
You're the teacher. Jennifer started teaching the classes like 4 years or something like that.
Yeah, for a while.
If you just allow God to, I was going to say, Dave Ramsey tells you to get $1,000 emergency fund, to get rid of debt that you don't need,
he says get rid of all debt.
Yeah, much as you can. And two, probably one of the smartest things we did, is we got vehicles that we paid cash for. We didn't have no payment. We were able to get general liability, not have to carry full coverage. All that. When you're broke, every little thing matters. I mean, we were trying to save money in absolutely everything we could. But in the midst of all that, we never stopped praying and fasting, never stopped tithes and offering, and we never stopped going to God's house and worshiping Him and serving Him.
And making decisions together.
And praying together.
Yes.
Yeah, and just getting on the same page.
Yeah.
And making sure that if she didn't feel right about it, I just had to be like, fine, I'm okay with that. If she doesn't feel right about it, then it's just not right. And if I don't feel right about it, it's just, we had to be on the same page, both feel good about it. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And not to think that she was trying to control me or I'm trying to control her. We're just making sure that we're doing life together. We're going in agreement together. And
in the same way, in our giving, or, as God tells us to, calls us to give or to do certain things, we make sure that, we come together in that as well.
Yeah. So long podcast. Hopefully people watch it, but just know that if you have been debating about paying tithes, if you've been in financial struggle and you're tired of just it being such an issue, try God's principles. Praying and fasting, tithes and offering, worship and serving the Lord. Do those things, and we're a living example. God will just blow your mind. I mean, he will He will bless you. So, Miss Jennifer, thanks for joining me today
Thank you for
on
having
Unfathered
me.
Fathers. Thanks for watching.